again, I don't know that this is the case, but I think where my concern comes in, like if I'm checking reasons for concern with this, is you said he has fans within the organization, and the first person you mentioned is Vivek. It's like, okay, well, was this Scott Perry's decision? Was this his call 100%? Or was his taking the job contingent on you have to think that Doug Christie is the right guy? Because if that's the case, then I think we wind up a couple years down the road exactly where we were this year, where GM and head coach aren't seeing eye to eye, and now we're going through this whole process again. So my hope and my deepest desire is that this is Scott Perry's call. This is what Scott Perry wants to do. When he laid out his vision for the Kings coach that he wanted, he described Doug.
100%.
It seemed to me. So I think this is Scott Perry's call. I think my hang up here is, again, it's not Doug. It's not even Scott Perry. It's just, it's really hard to just give the Kings the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, okay, hey, now everything's going to go great.
Well, like, look, I think we all understood that this was probably the way it was going to go, that they brought in Scott Perry. Now look, like bringing in Scott Perry by itself, it's not a horrible, like crazy move.
No.
Like Scott Perry's a seasoned dude. He walks in the door, and he knows exactly what he's doing, right?
Yeah, they didn't hire a rando.
No, they didn't hire a rando. And, to be honest with you, the last 3 times, they did hire a rando. Whether Vlade Divac was an NBA player and a former Sacramento King and a Hall of Famer and all that stuff, that doesn't matter.
Front office rando.
Like he had very, very little experience. Pete D'Alessandro had never been a leading man. Again, Monty McNair was like a third or even a fourth for a lot of his time in Houston and had moved up the ladder. Like these guys were randos. They were not household names. In fact, Wes Wilcox is probably the most noticeable of all of these as someone that you had heard of before. So, like, look, I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at the same time, what I like about Scott Perry is his ability to work with just about anybody. That's what I learned about him the last time he was here. It's that, he has a demeanor that is easy to work with, that he's there for the right reasons to build a winner and a sustainable winner. And if he thinks he can get away with Doug as the head coach and watch Doug grow as a head coach and become, hopefully a really good head coach in the league, then I'm okay with that. But the deal has to be that it's not, well, it wasn't really my first choice or it's none of that. It's whether you can go out and get the pieces to support the coach in place. Like we can talk about all we want about how Mike Brown and either Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox, that group, they didn't get along. They got along just fine. The problem was that Mike kept asking for things and the front office didn't go get those things. Just like when Pete D'Alessandro and Mike Malone really got into it years ago, it was that Michael Malone had a second-round pick rookie, Ray McCallum, playing 46 to 48 minutes a night as his point guard and said, can you please go get me a point guard? I don't care who it is. And Pete D'Alessandro went out and got Royce White, a 280-pound power forward.
Who didn't fly on planes, correct?
Who wouldn't fly on planes and who never scored an NBA basket. Ever. That's where you have to be on the same page. It's like, hey, go get me length and athleticism at the wing. Everybody knows that's what the Kings need. That's what Scott Perry said in his press conference. I'm going to get a point guard. I'm going to get length and athleticism at the wings. Okay, that's all Doug's can ask for. Like if there's someone who's not getting along with people, you go to him and say, hey, this guy's got to go. The other thing I'd point out too is that like every situation is different for coaches. So a coach can work somewhere, they might not work somewhere else. And I know like here in Sacramento, we revere Rick Adelman, right? He had this 8-year run, which was the most incredible 8-year run. And you remember him in Portland and how he took the team all the way to like a championship, but couldn't win. But I think a lot of people forget that between the Portland job and the Sacramento job, he was a head coach of the Golden State Warriors and was a complete failure, like a complete mess. They went, like 30-52 the year, his second year, and they got fired, right?
Thanks.
So like all of this it's always situational. And like whether Doug knows all of the X's and O's that he needs to know today or not, that doesn't matter so much as if he can put the right people around him
Mm-hmm.
and if he can have a voice that resonates in the locker room.
Yeah, and if he's given the runway to do that as well, this can't turn into, for me anyway, this can't turn into a thing where the roster is just not there this year because they're still cleaning some stuff out and reorganizing and getting the right players in, and they go, let's say 40-42. It can't be, all right, hey, Doug's hot seat, got to make the playoffs next year. Or this is like there has to be some build up and runway, because I don't think this roster is in a great spot. I saw our guy, I saw our guy Manny in the chat saying none of this really matters until we see what the roster looks like, and I totally agree. And that's why right now, just the Doug Christie hire in a vacuum, like, sure, like, yeah, I don't hate it. But what does it mean for the team? I think is going to have a lot to do with what their roster looks like. I think Doug can do the right things and is capable of doing the right things and pushing the right buttons and motivating players in the right way. But if the roster stinks, like,
I'm
I
with
think
you.
There's any coach that's going to save it.
Yeah, I think that this roster right now, it's not so much that it lacks talent, it's that it lacks cohesiveness, and there has to be a way to fix that.
Yeah, the roster as a collective is just not good.
Yeah. But as individuals, I think there are nice pieces on this roster.
There are.
It's just you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and you got to get the right pieces in place. We'll continue talking about this, kind of what are the next steps now for the Kings? What does that coaching staff potentially look like? We'll get into all of that here on the Insiders. We're hanging out with you until noon, but we'll also get to George Kittle signing a 4-year, $76.4 million extension with $40 million guaranteed. That's kind of nuts.
That's a lot of money.
There's the underlying thing. We'll dig in a little further to that in a bit, but the underlying thing here is this makes me really optimistic that a Brock Purdy contract is close.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're doing this massive big money deal with Kittle now if they were still miles apart with Purdy. And I don't think Purdy would even be there for OTAs if they were miles apart.
Yeah, it sounds like they're getting closer and closer to a resolution here, which is good.
Yeah. And good on the Niners for not letting this Kittle thing. This Kittle contract, I was so certain was going into July. I was so ready for George Kittle's at the facility, but he's not practicing. And we were going to get it. So good on the Niners for getting that done. And we'll dig further into that. And we'll dig further into Shaquille O'Neal being the GM of Sac State men's basketball. It's kind of a wild thing that college sports needs a GM now. But that's where we're at.
It's a weird thing, bringing in Mike Bibby as a head coach, that's fine. Mike Bibby does have some coaching experience, although not at the major college level. But bringing in Shaquille, you know what it does? It puts like a big brand name on whatever you're trying to build.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's going to bring in the money that they hope it does, whether it's NIL money or it's money to build a stadium, an arena, whatever. But I don't think it can hurt you to bring in someone like Shaq. Although I was here when he was a minority owner of the Sacramento Kings, and that was just like a figurehead thing that happened. He showed up, I think, once, maybe twice total.
I know he was there for the season opener at Arco when after the Kings had agreed or they were staying in Sacramento. And I think he was at that season opener. And that's the only time I ever saw him in Sacramento.
He showed up at Media Day. So we had him for Media Day, like that first year. But he just came and like took pictures with everybody. I remember like Jason Jones has a picture of like Shaq reaching out with big things, and Jason Jones' face is right next to Shaq.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Hopefully he does more than that for Sac State.
No, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, he needs to actually engage. And I don't know if he spends 5 hours a week working on Sac State stuff, but whatever it is, he's got to do something.
Right. Because he can help.
Yeah, he can help bring in the money to build that stadium if he wants.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. No, we'll get more into that for sure. You know what I'm going to keep getting into is Underdog Daily Fantasy.
Good segue.
Their pick'em game. Thank you. Their pick'em game. It's higher or lower on at least 2 player stats. A big loser for me last night. in part because Draymond Green got into foul trouble. I had Draymond Green more than 8.5 points. He cashed his 2 threes in the first quarter. And I'm like, sweet. Hey, 3 more points over the final 45 minutes of this game. Foul trouble, flagrants, technicals. He's on the bench for most of the second half. Tough night for your boy on Underdog. But I'm right back in the saddle tonight. There's a ton of NBA action going on. We've got game 5s, which means the extender promo for Underdog is up to 80% profit boost token.
Uh-oh.
I'm up to 80% profit boost on this lineup tonight. So here's what I'm doing. In that 80% means if your lineup is worth $100, you can now win $180 with that same lineup with this profit boost token. Again, it's the extender promotion that an Underdog is doing for each round of the NBA playoffs. It's the best, and I'm having a great time with it, and I think you will too. Sign up today using promo code Kyle M, KYLEM. Here's my lineup tonight. AJ Green for the Bucks, lower than half a point in the first quarter. If AJ Green's in the game in the first quarter, I don't expect the Bucks to be looking for him. I think this is a game that Giannis is going to try and come out and take over early. I think you may see some Bobby Portis sprinkled in, but with no Dame, I think Giannis is going to be like, you know what? This is all on me. I'm going to go try and get this road win and get this series back to Milwaukee. Number 2 for me is OG Anunoby, higher than 16.5 points. He's been pretty reliable in these playoffs. Mm-hmm. And this is a chance for the Knicks to close out the Pistons at home. I'm expecting a big game from OG Anunoby. And then Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I'm going lower than 6.5 points. I just don't trust KCP to score right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's a wreck.
Yeah, man. He's kind of a mess. I think the Magic might be a little bit of a mess. Maybe a Paolo Hero ball game. So I'm going Kentavious Caldwell-Pope lower than 6.5 points. That is my lineup. And because of the profit boost token, I'm getting a 80% profit boost on that from my friends at Underdog. You can get the same. Download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code Kyle M. That's KYLEM to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code Kyle M, KYLEM. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/extend.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncbgambling.org. More on Doug Christie becoming the Sacramento Kings head coach. What are the next steps? We'll dig into that here on the Insiders. Joe Brazil, James Hammond, Kyle Madsen. Oh, and we're giving away $500 later. Yeah,
we are.
Nice guys. Stay locked in. ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Center.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Oof. I would hate that so much. Yeah, man, I got you. Here you go. Where is it? Assets? I know you're joking, but I'm going to do this very seriously. Assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/extend.html. You're welcome. Okay, thanks. When James was talking earlier, I went to go look up and just the light just hit my eye in the wrong way. And it's just not, I think, a thing I'm used to.
And that's okay. And that's totally fine.
No, it's not a big deal. I needed to lock in earlier and realize my surroundings. That's on me.
It's okay.
I need to be better about that.
Maybe like a backup pair of sunglasses.
Actually, no, my son is.
I have this bit in my head where one day I will just look like James Bond, just for no reason. Like I'll have sunglasses, like a tux.
Hell yeah.
We'll sit on it for now. Pause.
Tuxedo Fridays?
Maybe. Ooh. Maybe.
Got these business expenses and got tuxedos. Got tuxedo rentals out the wazoo.
It's cheaper just to buy a tux. You can get really nice tuxes for 100.
That's facts.
$150. One
time I rented a tuxedo from a place that I will not name. and not a tuxedo, a suit. I rented a suit. It's the last time I've ever rented a suit because it turns out there are places you can buy suits for an affordable price on the internet. So I rented this suit, and it was like, I don't know that they did anything to tailor it. I don't think they did anything to, it was the boxiest.
Oh no.
Just like shoulder pads. It didn't have shoulder pads, but it was not a clean looking suit. It looked like one that I went into the store and grabbed off the rack and just wore.
I have like,
It's like
10
they put down
suits.
it was like they put down the wrong measurements. It was crazy.
I wore suits for years.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
Hey, dang right it is. That's James. Joe's over there. I'm Kyle. Shout out to our friends at Jiffy Lube. The Kings have hired a head coach, Doug Christie. The number one box I think Scott Perry needed to check this offseason. Like, obviously, you just needed to hire a coach. I think getting it done. So I'm a little bit stuck in the middle because I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here. It wasn't my favorite thing how they did the GM stuff where Monty gets fired after addressing the team after the season, and like hours later they've announced the hire of Scott Perry. That that rubbed me the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's a good thing that they got the Doug Christie stuff out of the way and that they avoided the, oh yeah, they're interviewing this coach and they're interviewing this coach and this coach was seen in Sacramento. And instead of dragging this out for 3 weeks, they knew what guy they wanted to land on and they just got there.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, not everyone's going to be comfortable with this. Not everybody's going to be A-okay. And, you know, like, I want to bring up someone in the chat that, you know, Ivan, I don't mind Doug being the coach. What I don't like is being lied to, that you needed a week to make a coaching search when you were just going to hire Doug anyways. The Kings never said that they were going to do an exhaustive coaching search. What Scott Perry said is he was going to mull over the decision and figure out, and he'd have an answer for us what he's going to do with the coach.
He said within about a week.
In about a week.
And it was 6 days.
Yeah, it's about a week. Yeah, I don't think he lied to anybody. He didn't say, like, he did say, I've had a bunch of phone calls coming in, and this is a desirable job. But outside of that, I don't know that he made any claim that he was going to do an exhaustive search.
Yeah, I think his exact phrase was, I'm going to talk to some people. And I took that more as he's going to talk to people in the building and he's going to talk to maybe players or assistant coaches or whatever it was, or just confirming, hey, there are former head coaches who are down to be on a coaching staff as an assistant. I didn't take it as they were going to do some exhaustive search. And if they had, cool. But to me, I think that there was, how do I want to say this? It feels like Doug had the inside track the entire time.
Of course.
So I personally don't feel like they were ever like veiled or lying and
dishonest about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say this too.
Deceiving was the word I was looking for.
Okay. There are coaches who get jobs every summer in the NBA, and so many of them flame out. They just don't make any sense. Like, first of all, Doug Christie has had a 15-year NBA playing career, 14-year, 15-year playing career. After that, he trained young athletes. He hasn't left the game. He came back and he started doing television, I don't know, 2015, 2016, right around there. He worked his way up to being the front guy, on the broadcast as the analyst. But then, like, if he would have just got the job there as an analyst and they moved him right into a head coaching job, say, like, I don't know, Chauncey Billups or JJ Redick, Steve Kerr. Yeah, if you would have just like taken him right from that job and made him right and just said, okay, he's the head coach now. Oh no, that would have likely been a disaster. But Doug didn't do that. He went and he worked on Luke Walton's staff for a year and a half. Luke gets let go. He sticks around. He works on again, no, it wasn't even that was the first year of him he didn't work for Luke for a year. It was only a couple months. Then he was on with Alvin Gentry. Mike Brown kept him on. He worked under Mike Brown for 2.5 years. So like at this point, he's been an assistant for 3.5 years. There are assistants all over the league. Like people want to say, oh, he hasn't put in his time or whatever. No, he's put in plenty of time to actually be an assistant, to be a head coach.
There are guys with, like you said, with way less experience who get jobs like this. I think if I'm fine with the hire in a vacuum. They just got to do the right stuff now moving forward. The other thing that worries me though is that I would like to know what their definition of like this is the guy. Is it because he went 3 games over 500 last season and they went, wow, how impressive? Or is it this guy's Q rating is super high, and if we hire anyone else, people aren't going to like that person, so we're going to take this offseason win and we're going to hire Doug?
It could just be that he did the job and you feel comfortable with him as a human being.
Sure.
And that you understand that, what he's here to win. He's not here for the next job or anything like that. Like this is what he's in Sacramento. He wants to win a championship. Now you have to give him all the support. And it could prove out that Doug is just not a great head coach. Yeah. We just don't know that yet. And, we can look at the end of the season and how things went sideways and all that stuff, but let's not act like this was a normal season. And that not only did a coach get fired, but you traded your best player and you brought in a bunch of new guys, some of which aren't new to each other and already had worked together and didn't really work well together. So, I mean, like this entire thing was like off from, probably early December until the end of the season. And to go out there and put up a 27-24 record, I think you did a good job. And on top of that, not only did you have a guy who's an assistant for 3.5 years, but then he's been a head coach for 51 games. And so he has learned on the fly. He did.
Hope so.
You would at least hope so, right? And you understand he gained experience by that last half of the season. On top of that, he did it without 2 assistant coaches because he lost not only himself as an assistant, but on top of that, Luke Laux left. You want him to be able to hire his own staff and all that stuff so he's comfortable. There were a lot of things playing against Doug Christie in the final, 40, 50 games of the season. A lot of things that did not go well, whether it's trading your De'Aaron Fox or it's, coaches leaving or just the fact that it's not your staff. And the fact that he still was able to survive and put up a 27-24 record. No, they did not play well in a play-in game at all. Yeah. And were there other games where they just embarrassed everybody? Yeah, there were. But like, name a Kings team that didn't do that. Last season's team lost to the 4 worst teams in the league. And it was just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting experiment, but everything's always interesting in Sacramento.
I'd be so interested to know what the expectation is internally now. Is the expectation, because I think the expectation internally this year was that the Kings would make the playoffs. And I'm so interested to know, that's the goal for every team, to be sure. Every team, the Charlotte Hornets are going to go into training camp next year going, our goal is to make the playoffs. That's the goal. Now, does everybody look around and go, "Ooh, this team's not making the playoffs"? Yeah, maybe. But they're going to tell you that's your goal. I'm wondering what the internal expectation is. Where, and again, this goes back a little bit to if they trade for Giannis, then obviously the expectation changes dramatically. But if, let's just say, nothing happens this offseason, they just, you know what, there no deals get made, no players move. It's the craziest offseason in NBA history. The Kings have the exact same team. What would the thought be? Oh, okay, Doug can make this a 50-win team. Or would there be realistic expectations going, hey, you know what? This roster is about a 500 roster, and as long as it's not a disaster, then good.
Well, I think that might be the way you have to go. I mean, there is a way in which you can look at this thing as like a 1 to 2 year like turnaround where, again, you have, if you cannot trade DeMar DeRozan, you only have him for another year, and then you have a $10 million buyout for the final year. Zach LaVine has 2 years left on his deal. So again, we're talking about, 1 year, $46 million, next year, $49 million. Right now, I don't think Zach LaVine is tradable. A year from now, Zach LaVine is totally tradable.
As an expiring
and a massive expiring contract that someone else could go, oh no, we're totally in. Now, if the Kings do something like extend Zach LaVine this offseason, then, of course that extends out everything. And like, as long as you were able to do like a reasonable extension, not an extension on $49 million, then I think a lot of people would be like, okay, like, I think, like, again, Zach LaVine's a high-end player. It's just whether or not you can build the team around him, and whether Sabonis is that right piece, and whether you can build the team around two of them, and then you just keep, going from there. But I don't know. I mean, for me, the biggest issue the Sacramento Kings have is not who's coaching the team, it's the roster. And that's always going to be the problem. If you can't fix a roster, then it doesn't matter. Again, like Greg Popovich in his prime could not have walked in the door and fixed this situation this season.
And that's what, I guess that's what I'm hoping is recognized internally. Yeah. Because we can all see it. You see it, I see it, Joe sees it, everybody listening on the radio, everybody watching on YouTube. Everybody sees it. People in the free Odyssey app, I don't want to leave out the app listeners. But everybody knows that this is a roster thing. And again, I keep saying this, but my concern is that the guy who pushed for the Zach LaVine trade is going, no, this roster's good. No, the roster, it needs a couple of tweaks, but the roster's good.
It has to have, it's not a couple of tweaks. It has to have a facelift.
I agree.
Like,
I am right there with you.
It doesn't have to be a teardown.
I hope they see that.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a teardown, but it has to be like a very strong like facelift. There has to be like 3 positions at a minimum in your rotation completely addressed. Like I do not think Trey Lyles will be back. So that's one piece. You have got to find a point guard. That's another piece. And I don't think DeMar DeRozan fits his roster long term. I don't think he fits his roster short term. I don't think he fits his roster, like point blank. So like those are things where you can start to look at this and say, how do you build this team differently? How do you address some of the needs that you have? Can you get value for these guys? Can you use some of the war chest that Scott Perry is about it just inherited? Because that's the one thing that I will say this. The one thing that Monty and West did on their way out the door is they were able, even though it cost you your best player, they were able to reset all of your draft picks forever after this season. And they were able to put you in a financial situation that for next season might not look great. If you want to bring it out to another season, it's not spectacular, but it's not just so woeful that you can't get out of it. Yeah. Like there are ways for this team to get better this offseason without any question. It's not going to come through the draft because you don't have a draft pick. You don't have a first round pick. You have a second. But there are ways to improve this roster greatly this offseason. And it's going to take somebody who's creative and has an aggressive approach and has the contacts around the league to pull off a trade or two that makes this group better.
I think the 1A to the roster thing, the 1B of the roster, the 1A to that is when you're making the moves you're talking about. If it's Trey Lyles leaving, if it's moving DeMar DeRozan, if it's whatever it is, pick a move and whichever one's your favorite, use that one. That has to be with a direction in mind for what the roster and the team is going to look like. It can't just be. I understand what you're saying. DeMar DeRozan is a fit on this roster. You watch like the Rockets, and you're like, hey, they could really use DeMar DeRozan. You watch the Magic, you're like, man, they could use DeMar. But I think what they need to be doing, Scott Perry and Doug Christie together, is let's say they move DeMar DeRozan. It's like, okay, for what? And making sure that whatever they're getting back is working toward whatever direction and whatever vision they have for the roster.
No, that's what it has to be.
It can't just be, oh, let's just move DeMar just to move him. Like, no, that's he's still a valuable player. You can't just give him away for nothing just for the sake of giving him away. So that's kind of the or again, we keep picking DeMar because he's a movable asset, but that could be Domas, it could be Malik Monk, it could be Keegan Murray, it could be whoever. If you're moving somebody, there has to be a very specific return that sets you further down the path that you've chosen. It can't just be this aimless wandering into the woods and going, hopefully we run into a playoff spot.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Well, no,
I promise it's not going to work.
Well, and just like I view DeMar DeRozan in a very similar way that I view Davion Mitchell. They're both really good players. They just don't fit the system that you have. Mm-hmm. You know, and you brought him in thinking you might be able to integrate him and do some different. That didn't work at all. Mm-hmm. Like DeMar is who he is. At 16 years in the league, he is who he is. You can't ask somebody to be different. Yeah. You know, did he shoot more threes? Sure, he shot more threes. That's not the problem.
No.
So you have to go out and build a team that is cohesive and makes sense. It's real basic. Yeah. And that's where, again, if there is meddling, if there is someone pushing, saying, hey, you got to go sign this guy so we can walk him out at the California Classic, all that stuff, that's fine. But that's not how you win, and that's not how you build a legacy. And
that's actually not fine.
If you're Scott Perry. Well, I mean, if you're just going to go through the motions and you're not going to do anything that's proactive, I mean, to me, that was a reactive move, the DeMar DeRozan signing. But it was because no one was proactive before that.
Yes.
And at some point, like, you have to be proactive and go out there and get the right pieces. It's like you go get a guy like Jake LaRavia, and everyone in the world's like, look how much different the Kings look when they have 2 6'8" guys flying around and Keegan Murray and Jake LaRavia. Just think if you had 3 of them or 4 of them, like every other team in the NBA.
Right. Had 3 or 4 of them, and 1 or 2 of those guys are all-star level players.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're cooking with gas. Like that's where, and so hopefully they pick that direction, and hopefully the other reason, just while we're on the DeMar thing, the other reason I personally brought DeMar DeRozan up is the fit, but I also think he's going to want out. I don't know what motivation he would have to continue playing basketball here if his goal is to win a championship in his next couple of years.
Yeah, but I don't think we're ever going to get that.
You don't think he would ask out?
I don't think at this point in his career it behooves anyone for him to ask out. I think it's more of a, hey, you want out? And it's like, yeah, I want out. And it's like, okay, we'll find you a spot.
Okay, well,
and let's not go play this thing in the media.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't have to be a knockdown drag out in the media, but it wouldn't shock me if when Scott Perry has his chat with DeMar, like he said he's going to have with all the players, that DeMar's like, yeah, if we could find a different solution to next season, that wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
Even if it's kept private. All right. We'll have more on this. The Sacramento Kings have hired Doug Christie as their head coach. We'll get some potential names on who might be on his coaching staff, but we also have George Kittle contract extension news, and we had some NBA playoff games last night. We'll get into all of that coming up on The Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube here on ESPN 1320 Sacramento Sports Leader. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. Joe Brazil on the ones and twos. We're The Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. Oh, shoot. I missed the... Oh, you just texted me, though. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have to see, like, this is, I mean, it's slightly in an uncomfortable zone for a lot of people. You know, but like, look, there are guys who get head coaching jobs every year who are either retreads or who are guys who who have worked their way up, and then they get a job like, what was it last year, where Darvin Ham was just overmatched like the entire season. Was it last year or the year before? I think it was last year. Like, there are guys that get fired all the time. I didn't particularly love the idea of another retread here in Sacramento. And
Yeah.
Doug Christie's not that.
I don't know. I just don't get like there's no name out there that would have been like super inspiring.
I agree.
If they had hired Michael Malone, it's like, okay, but how's
Yeah,
that?
but we know
how's
that was
gonna
never going to
go?
happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And that didn't ever seem to be on the table. But like Mike Budenholzer, no thank you. Doc Rivers moved the needle for anyone?
Frank Vogel
moved the needle for anyone?
I'm
Like,
just
I
kind
just-
of like, I feel like I'm not crazy about the recycling. That's why I'm excited for Doug, just because I'm not crazy about the idea of, even though all these coaches, they have experience, but it seems like a lot of these guys, like, you see what has happened and they're being recycled. So to have a new fresh mind, that's why I'm kind of, at least I'm optimistic per usual. So
Love it for you, man.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys got a bunch of stuff going on
You're the
here in the
best, Joe.
chat, right? So Mark Jackson should not be part of anything. Just straight up. Jeff Van Gundy has a really, really good job with a team that pays a premium for everything, and I don't think Jeff Van Gundy is going to leave. And Jeff Van Gundy is exactly the wrong. Like, you've got to hand a bunch of control over to Jeff Van Gundy if he's going to be your head coach. Like, he is going to want power.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you're going to have to make a bunch of other like allowances for that. I don't think he would ever work in Sacramento. He is not going to be micromanaged. He is not going to have daily or weekly or, a couple of times a day conversations with an owner or anything else. Now, and he hasn't been a head coach in like, what, 20 years?
Can I? Who? Jeff Van Gundy?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he is not.
Yeah. So
I just want to the Mark Jackson thing has nothing to do with the fact he's religious. There is a like, what's that called when you have a like dossier of how dreadful it was to work for him.
yes,
It wasn't, hey, he goes to church. Like, that's not the issue.
No, and I didn't see somebody
The
put
issue
that
is
out there,
that
but
he's not that good of a person.
well,
And he's
yeah.
very, very difficult to work with.
Yeah, you might
He
want to
did-
look exactly what happened with his church situation.
Finding coaches who are good is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Jackson was a really good coach who turned the Warriors around, and I don't think that you see the version of the Warriors you got without the 3 years under
Two
Mark
or three. Yeah.
under Mark Jackson. The fact that he has not gotten another coaching job says a lot.
Is he even still on TV? I don't think so.
I have not heard him on a broadcast.
Yeah. Let's see. Russ Dog, Michael Malone would never come back to Sacramento as an assistant. That's just not happening. There's a difference between Michael Malone and maybe a guy like Dave Yeager.
Yes.
And again, there's reasons for that. Like, Dave is an assistant right now, but Dave also, like, after he left Sacramento, went through a cancer scare and stuff like that. Like, I think just like life means something different to Dave Yeager at this point than it did when he was young.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
Yeah, Joe Brazil's also here. I got to change that. I'm going to get your name into the intro at some point, Joe. Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like it's about time.
Okay.
That
Okay. I
was-
really wish some people might think I'm a lot more sinister
No.
than
Just as the nicest guy in the building.
every time. the look I gave him the don't worry about it, bro. It's good look.
Yeah.
And then he's acting like
I'm
I'm
like,
shooting
wow, dude,
knives.
relax.
Yeah, darts.
Shout out to Jiffy Lube. They sponsor this show. I wanted to get to something somebody said in the chatty house. We'll save it. We'll save that. They brought up Sam Cassell.
Oh, that's my bad. I took that one down.
Yeah, no, they brought up Sam Cassell as a possible assistant, and we'll get into potential Kings assistant coaches. And I want to save Sam Cassell's name specifically, but I want to get into some non-Kings news if we can.
Yeah,
if that's cool
go.
with everyone. Just briefly, we'll get back into the Doug Christie news and what it means for the Kings. But we had some other news come across our desks this morning. George Kittle and the 49ers agreed to a 4-year, $76.4 million extension. That also comes with $40 million guaranteed. So they get this done. And I believe it was Scooter in the chat earlier, ask how they got this done, but they haven't gotten Purdy's deal done yet. To me, I think they're two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
George Kittle is going into the last year of his deal and was looking for a contract extension commensurate with his production over the last couple of years, where he's looked like the best tight end in the league again. I think the fact they got that deal done and hammered that out on April 29th is a sign that Purdy's deal is close.
Okay.
That's my takeaway, because if they were super far apart with Brock Purdy, and now you have this George Kittle's the highest paid contract in NFL history deal coming down,
mm-hmm.
I think it would be really, really tough. But they're paying guys like George Kittle because, you know what? Hey, he's produced really well under Brock Purdy, and he's a big reason for Brock Purdy's success. We're going to lock him up because we know that we're going to lock up this quarterback who relies on him so heavily.
Well, then they know their financial situation now.
Mm-hmm.
You get through the draft, you know exactly what you have as far as draft money that you need to set aside.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at how much you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy and how much you still have left over for Kittle, and then you make moves accordingly. Like, they're not like within $1 million or $2 million or $2 million of like being over the luxury tax.
They have a ballpark idea of what Brock Purdy's going to cost them.
Yep.
Over the next, not just because this year I think will be inconsequential. Over the next 2, 3, 4 years, they now have an idea of how much that's going to cost. And so I think how much Kittle made and however they've structured that deal, I haven't seen the structure of the deal yet, I think is dependent upon the fact that, you know what, hey, we've got a good enough window of what our quarterback contract is going to cost and what that contract is going to look like, that we're comfortable doing this deal with George Kittle now. And I think the bigger deal, more than Kittle sticking around, is this, to me, paints the picture of a little bit with the same as the Kings hiring Doug Christie. Just getting this done and like, okay, hey, this is how we're moving forward. The 49ers are going, hey, you know what? Here, George Kittle signed. He's part of the core moving forward. Fred Warner is going to be part of the core moving forward. Nick Bosa, like, we know that, okay, these guys are going to continue into the next 3 or 4 years. And that's what this offseason's about. So I think that they got this done is a very good sign that the 49ers front office has a direction, and that direction involves Brock Purdy. And my guess is that deal is pretty close if they're getting a Kittle extension done.
Yeah, you would hope so. And look, if you're the 49ers, if you're Brock Purdy and you're looking at your offense, which is now down Deebo Samuel, and it's now down Brandon Ayuk, at least for part of the season.
Yeah.
You're begging them, please bring back Kittle. If you want me here and you want me to be productive, don't cut my legs out from underneath me.
Yeah.
You know, like, give me at least a couple of safety options, you know, which is, again, Juwan Jennings and maybe Ricky Pearsall. We'll see how that works out, but also McCaffrey out of the backfield. Like, I need to know that I'm going to have some pieces to work with here. Just so it's not just like the Brock Purdy experiment. Hey, we saw what Brock Purdy looked like with the greatest roster ever. Yeah. Let's see what he looks like with a complete crappy one that no one wants.
He's going to look way worse, by the way, as most quarterbacks would. Yeah, and it's just if Brock Purdy goes, okay, I'll take I'm just throwing out numbers here. $50 million annually. I'll take less than I came in wanting 56. I'll take 50, but you need to make sure that George Kittle's in a 49er uniform.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that, okay, I'm going to take less so you can build around me, but do it. Let's not hammer this out and then have this Kittle thing linger into August. So overall, really good news for the 49ers. And less consequential, Kittle now, barring a disaster, will go on the 10-year wall, which is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
The 49ers have a big shrine to all the players who have spent 10 years with the organization. They have not had a player get on the 10-year wall since Joe Staley, who was drafted in 2007. That is 18 years.
Wow.
It's been since they've drafted a player who went on the 10-year wall.
That's crazy.
Really nuts.
Juszczyk is going to make it too, but not as a draft pick, right?
He might make it.
Okay.
Again, barring disaster, he's on track to get there because he's what, 8 seasons in now.
Yep.
He needs 2 more. Yeah, so he's on track to get there as well. So that'd be kind of a cool thing. The other news outside of the Doug Christie hire, which we'll talk about coming up here in a bit, we'll get into some of his coaches and names to keep an eye on for his coaching staff. We've been hinting at that all day. The Shaq to Sac State thing, I'm all in on this. I love what Sac State is doing and trying to. There's we talk about steps, right? Like in the NBA. Hey, there's steps to this. You gotta get to the play-in, then you go to the playoffs at least once, maybe twice, and then you're ready to take that leap. It's not linear, but that's kind of the step. Mm-hmm. There's no steps in college sports. Nobody's watching and going, okay, Sac State, well, if you're going to be good, you have to like do it this way. There's no, especially in the NIL era, there's no, so if you can get Mike Bibby and Shaquille O'Neal into your building as just force of nature names.
Yeah.
To like Sac State, Shams Charania is tweeting about Sac State. That stuff matters, dude. If you're trying to do what they're doing and grow their athletics program the way they're doing it and invest in their athletics program the way they are, I love the idea. At first, I was definitely iffy on the Shaq thing. When I first saw it, I was like, because is he going to take this seriously like we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Is he stepping in and going, my job? And he said it in a Sac State tweeted out a statement where he said, I want to help these student athletes transition from high school to college and college to the NBA, and I'm helping them as people and da-da-da-da, and that's what we're here for. Awesome. I just hope it stays that way. And I hope it's not a 1-year thing because his son, Shakir, is playing for Sac State as a transfer from Florida A&M.
Well, I think here's the deal. Like when you're looking at bringing in young, high school age players to try to build your program, or you're looking, again, Sac State has had tons of Australian born players and stuff, right? If you're sitting there and you're sitting there with your parents, like, hey, I just got a phone call from Mike Bibby. And then like, was it really Mike Bibby? It's like, yeah, I got a phone call from Mike Bibby. And then like 5 minutes later, Shaq called. And it's like, you're going to take those calls.
Yes.
It's not like the Odyssey giveaways where people don't pick up their phones and then don't want to call back. You might go, I don't believe that was Shaq. I think it was Kenny Caraway acting as Shaq. And that's what but it's also, if you're a young guy and you're looking at, where am I going to go play basketball in college? You might look at Sac State a little bit different. You might go, you know what? I want to go hang out. I want to go meet Shaq. I want to meet Mike Bibby. I'll at least take the interview, which a month ago, you're not taking an interview from Sac State.
No.
So even local kids, like Sacramento has also become a hotbed for NBA talent.
If Jared McCain was healthy, they probably have 2 of the 3 Rookie of the Year.
2
nominees.
all rookie for sure. If he would have been healthy, 2 all NBA rookie first team selections.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm wary because of and you wrote this down, the Shaq Kings minority owner stint.
Yeah.
I don't want it to look like that.
No, that was a debacle.
That was a mess. So my hope is that, like I said, I think I'm scarred a little from that, but I'm trusting Mike Bibby here.
Mhm.
And shout out to the fact that Mike Bibby has squashed the beef with Shaq.
Yeah. That's funny.
I don't know that I'd have been like, the hell with you.
Don't bring Rick Fox up here.
Yeah.
Rick Fox is not the next GM.
Oh, he is not the one.
And if you want Robert Ory to be an assistant coach, no.
Ew.
No.
Ugh. Oh. Shudder to think. All right. We'll get back into the Kings hiring Doug Christie. We got NBA playoffs to talk about. Watched the NBA playoff team quit with their season on the line. It's remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. We'll talk about that with more Kings coming up on the Insiders. We're on ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. That's James Ham, Joe Brazil. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. We're back in a second on ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. Just clarity here because I was unclear. Frank Gore was drafted in 2005. Vernon Davis, I believe, also went on the 10-year wall, but he was an 06 draft pick. Staley was 07. He was the last player drafted to get to 10 years. But yeah, Frank got to 10 years. So
Also,
just to clarify.
I know there's a couple of people who like wanted an exhaustive search. What does that usually do? I mean, I get it.
Is it? And I ask this not to be flippant. I'm being genuine. Is it for the air of, okay, they found the right guy instead of just, okay, they like Doug, they didn't see any glaring issues, so they're just going to make him the coach.
But
if they had done this exhaustive search and still chosen Doug, it's like, oh, okay, well, they went and looked and they determined that he's the best guy.
Yeah, but I mean, they did an exhaustive search with Mike Brown. It worked year one. It sort of worked year two. By year three, you were done with him. Like they didn't do an exhaustive search with Luke Walton. And to be honest with you, Luke Walton lasted the same exact amount of time that Mike Brown did, and is still, I think, the third all-time leader in win percentage in Sacramento Kings history.
Oh my gosh, when you put it that literally just sent a shudder down my spine.
Yep.
Oh no.
But you go back to the Dave Yeager thing. Dave Yeager, they had like 8 head coaches in. Some of them they interviewed as many as 3 times, including Nate McMillan, and like they had this whole group of coaches. Dave Yeager became available on a Friday. They had him in on a Saturday, and he was announced on Sunday.
Man.
So, like, what is an exhaustive search? Because, I don't think anything works. It like, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. Keep going.
Yeah, Vivek bought the team and like got controlling interest, and then like 10 days later hired Mike Malone because he loved Mike Malone as the lead assistant on the Golden State Warriors. Like I don't think there have been missteps here for sure, but to be honest with you, the coaches that he's brought in, for the most part, have found some sort of success, whether it's the ultimate success, but the head coaching searches, whether they're quick or whether they are exhaustive, it doesn't matter. Someone wants to lay out their plan for the Sacramento Kings and some coaching interview and do a PowerPoint presentation. If they don't have the horses, they're not going to win. I don't want to say that coaching doesn't matter. It does matter at the NBA level, but it's also you have to have talent, or you're not going to be anywhere.
Hour number 2. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. Joe Brazil on the 1s and 2s, and we're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. We're taking you right up to noon, and then we'll hand it off to D'Lo and KC. Good fade. We'll hand it off to D'Lo and KC, and then we'll take you up to 4 o'clock right here on ESPN 1320 Sacramento Sports Leader. If you're listening on 1320 AM, that's our radio station. Salute. Good morning. Hello. If you're watching on YouTube and Twitch, don't forget about us when you get in your car. Hop over to ESPN 1320 AM or
98.5 HD2 on if you're doing HD.
yes, if you have an HD radio, which
Yeah.
is your Tesla and other various electric cars. Yeah. 98.5 FM HD2. Don't forget about us when you're not on YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah.
So we were talking at the break about this exhaustive coaching search the Kings did not partake in.
Mhm.
And I'm inclined a little bit. I'm gonna do the bad radio thing. I'm gonna be on the fence here. Because I don't necessarily have a problem with the way they went about this. Their interim coach was above 500 last year in a season that was kind of a mess. He had a 51 game audition, and if the people doing the hiring are like, "Yep, we saw enough in that audition that's all the interview we need," he's the guy. Okay, but I also understand why you would want him to go out and go, "Hey, you know what? Dave Yeager's available." Nate McMillan was the name you said at the break. So like Nate McMillan's out there. The Mike Budenholzer's out there. Michael Malone's out there. Or any of these guys? Are you bringing these guys in just to do the interview, and maybe somebody blows you away with their thoughts on the Kings roster and what they can do with it, or B, you at least get what, for example, the 49ers. When they interviewed Brandon Staley for their defensive coordinator position, I don't think they had any intention of hiring Brandon Staley to be their defensive coordinator. Just what he does defensively and what they do defensively were just a different. But they had gotten torched defensively, and they wanted to start figuring out, okay, what are some adjustments we need to make? So they went and got his thoughts from his point of view of defense on theirs, and then they ended up keeping him on the coaching staff, and that didn't end up going great. But I'm a little bit surprised they didn't do that. Where, man, think what you want about Michael Malone as a leader, and if he's too negative or he doesn't like Sacramento or whatever it is, whatever your thoughts on Michael Malone are, good coach with a lot of experience.
Well, yeah,
Get
but
him in the building and interview him.
Michael Malone was never going to come back to Sacramento.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I don't even care. Maybe he doesn't take the interview. The point is, fine, pick a different name. Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer won an NBA title.
Yep. Get
him in here and see what he thinks. Maybe he says something to spark Scott Perry and goes, you know what, we're not going to hire this guy, but you know what, that was a really interesting thought he had about Domantas Sabonis and Malik Monk in the pick and roll or whatever. I don't know.
No, I get you. The lack of a process sort of cuts you off from.
I'm a big process guy. Everybody knows that about me.
Yeah, but I mean, I get it because it does like bring other voices in the room and different ideas in the room. I totally get that. Now, you can do the same thing with assistant coaches. You can bring in a whole bunch of former head coaches and do the same exact thing. Look, Vivek wanted to make Doug Christie the head coach when they fired Luke Walton in the 2021-22 season. He did. And instead they went with Alvin Gentry. Alvin Gentry, part of the negotiation was whether or not they were going to give the job to Doug or they were going to give it to Alvin Gentry. At that point, Doug had been an assistant for 17 games. And that was a mess. There was no one who was fixing that. There was that was a train off the rails, careening down a cliff. That was a hot mess. Alvin Gentry did his best just to make the season, just to hold it all together. Yeah. And even he wasn't able to do it. Right. So I think when we talk about it, why there wasn't an interview process or anything like that, there was Doug Christie, number one, has been in the building for 10 years, right? At least. I don't know how long it's been since Doug, but it's got to be right around 10 years, right? Where he's at least part of stuff
even as a broadcaster?
Even as a broadcaster. So, but even as a broadcaster, you have conversations. You don't think Doug Christie gets invited to every holiday party, that Doug Christie is part of different discussions that we're not part of?
Especially as a former player.
Yeah. So it's not so him and Vivek have a relationship. Him and the upper management has relationships as well. But you just gave a guy 3.5 years as an assistant coach, and he did perfectly fine. He was a big
Mhm.
part of like the scouts. You
Mhm.
trusted whether Mike Brown wanted Doug on his staff or not, maybe not fully, but he trusted him to take Domantas Sabonis
Yeah.
and work with him every summer and make Domantas Sabonis into a better basketball player.
Mhm.
Like he trusted him with that. And
Mhm.
so I don't know what more people want when they're looking around. It's like there are guys with a lot less experience that have been given jobs.
Mhm.
And it's just because, Doug waved to his wife while he was a basketball player, and now you're like, oh no, that guy can't be a coach. No, that's ridiculous. Like Doug's put in the time, he's put in the energy, he's done the work to do what it takes to be an NBA coach. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, driving to and from the city,
Yeah.
Doug wants to be a coach. Okay, Doug,
Not ready.
then go
Yeah.
work at go to the coaching symposiums. Go to the Pete Newell big man camp. Do these things. Do the steps that you have to do.
Mhm.
Like, look, we're at a point where the guy's been around the game again for over a decade.
Mhm.
He's in it fully. He has conversations with everybody. He's a guy who bridges all kinds of like he's able to reach people,
Yeah.
to talk to people in a way that they are intrigued and they listen.
Yeah.
And so like look, whether it's going to work out or not, I don't know, but again, there's only one head coach that's really worked out in Sacramento, and it was
Mhm.
Rick Allen.
Mhm.
Outside of that, there's so many of them. Again, Doug Christie's the 10th head coach I've covered in 15 years.
I think the other thing about exhaustive coaching searches, and when you say what made me think of this was you saying that there's been one successful coach in Sacramento, one really successful coach in Sacramento.
The only other one is Mike Brown.
Right. So the other thing about this exhaustive coaching search is if they went with a different person, there's no name out there. There's one name out there that intrigues me, but the rest of them would have been so uninspiring. If they went and got Dave Yeager, would we be doing backflips right now collectively? Like, oh my God, they did it. Wow, the Kings are so back because they got Dave Yeager as the head coach. Like, no, probably
for a second
not.
time.
For a second time. I think Dave Yeager's a darn good basketball coach, but like we've seen it. We know what it is.
Mhm.
Like, Doug Christie went 27-24 last year. Regardless of the job you think he did, it's on the fly. He was an interim coach. He gets an offseason to get his arms around his coaching staff, delegating responsibilities, getting people he trusts, ideally getting people he trusts in the building. Like now we get to see, okay, can he actually like coach? I think he's got the mental side of it down. I think he's got the motivational aspect and getting players to engage and buy in. I think he's gotten that down. Now, is what he's getting them to buy into going to work? Well, that's why they play the games. I have the same level of confidence that I would have had they hired Dave Yeager or Mike Budenholzer or Doc Rivers, or I'm just picking big names now, or Jeff Van Gundy. Like all right, I guess.
Yeah, I would say this too. Like, you gave him an opportunity to run the team for 51 games.
Mhm.
If he went 20-31, I think we would all have a different idea.
Very different idea.
If he went 15-36, it'd be like, hey, no.
Yeah.
But when you consider the situation and the fact that he did run he took a team that was 5 games under 500, like he went 20-11 to start. Like, then they had injury issues. They had all kinds of issues down the stretch. Like there was a lot of chaos in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he did a bad job at all. And again, you can circle the fact that they got to the play-in game and they just got railed. Like, okay, you can say that's fine. They got their butts kicked. That's fine. But at the same time, like I don't get that one game shouldn't matter. And in fact, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for anything. The Dallas Mavericks went on and they got their butts kicked as well. Like right after and then the team that beat them, they got absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think it really matters with that one game at the end of the season. The fact that the team didn't show up, it's a bit concerning. But again, like, go out there and make changes. Like, build this thing up. Don't I don't think it's a complete tear down. A lot of people do. And I also know that they're not going to tear it down.
Yeah.
So,
which may be a whole other problem. Does Zach Man 3 on YouTube?
Okay.
Zach, you're just gonna be Zach today. Sorry if that's not right. You're gonna be Don. Doug Christie is the Kings' attempt to do a Dan Campbell hire a leader of men who can instill belief and trust. The thing that the Lions did with Dan Campbell was they surrounded him with the right people.
That's right.
Ben Johnson was an awesome offensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn was a stellar defensive coordinator. Both of those coordinators have now gone on to head coaching jobs. Aaron Glenn with the Jets and Ben Johnson with the Chicago Bears. That's what the Kings need to be doing with Doug Christie. Is now, okay, he's going to be your head coach. And are there things he might get wrong? Are there things he's going to have to learn along the way? And are there going to be some losses where like, hey, that one's on Doug? Yeah, 100%. Every new coach goes through that. But I think you mitigate some of the risks of hiring a first-time head coach by surrounding him with coaches who have done it before and surrounding him with people who he can lean on and who he can trust to go, hey, how do I do X, Y, and Z? Or what would you do in this spot?
Yeah.
That has to be the next step coaching wise.
Well, that, and he has to be able to delegate. And in order for him to delegate, he has to have a group of people that he trusts 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, look, I think we both like think very highly of Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
A leader of men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jesus Christ could not coach the Jets to a winning season, like, or to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter who, George Halas, like Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
Like, no one is going to save
this
that
iteration of the Jets. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, or any iteration in the last 50 years.
Guess that's true.
And that's, so again, whether Doug is I look at Doug and I say, yeah, he's a leader of men like Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm.
He is. He's a guy who comes in and he can capture the imagination of a room, right? But you've got to support him. And I've been saying that since the beginning. And he didn't. I know there's no way he felt the support this year in that 27 and 20, that last 51 games of the season, that he needs to feel from here going forward.
Yeah.
He just didn't. And so hopefully that's where they take the next logical step, is to actually put some money and some assets into building a coaching staff that makes sense.
What I know we've named a bunch of people here as, people they would have interviewed for a head coaching job if they had done this exhaustive search.
Mm-hmm.
Is there potential, do you think, that maybe a person like a Dave Yeager is on the radar as a lead assistant and coming back in that role?
I would love to see Dave Yeager back in Sacramento.
It doesn't have to be just.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard Dave Yeager's name mentioned in Sacramento for the last, month, in just weird ways, like it's popped up, but he's not the only name. Like recently I've heard like Mike Woodson's name as like a potential support staff guy. I think we're going to hear more names as time goes by of assistants that have experience, have head coaching experience. I've said this a bunch of times. If Doug could call Elston Turner and say, hey, do you want a new challenge outside of Minnesota? Elston has been in the league forever. He's been in Sacramento twice. He was part of Rick Adelman's staff while Doug was a player. He came back and was part of Dave Yeager's staff. Elston Turner is a great defensive mind and could help this team.
Sure. Because
it's not just, hey, Doug, what's your defensive identity? And Doug's like, play hard and, teach like the basics of how to defend, but also like finer nuances of how to defend.
Yeah.
But then there also has to be schemes. And when schemes aren't working, there has to be another scheme.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the biggest disasters that I've ever seen this last year was, how does a coach like Mike Brown, number one, like he's a defensive minded coach. He's a great defensive minded coach. I mean, he won championships as a defensive coordinator for the Golden State Warriors. How did they not have an idea of how to fix the 3-point shooting defense over the last 2 years? Like how did that happen?
Is baffling.
It is absolutely baffling. But also, like, look, and this is not to bag on Luke Laux or Mike Brown. Like, why would you make Luke Laux your defensive coordinator when Luke doesn't have that experience at all? Like this was a team that had problems a year before on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in a young assistant coach that's been known for offense his whole career and having him coach the defense and come up with schemes. I'm not sure that was the smartest move either. And it did not work out.
No.
Like this defense was not good, and it had like a fatal flaw that you could not overcome in most games.
Yep.
So
we're going to give away $500 in the next segment. Are you giving you an opportunity to win $500 because D'Lo and Casey are also going to give you an opportunity to win $500. So get to ESPN1320.com right now. Go find the Jump Shot Jackpot giveaway contest page. Should be front and center. It's courtesy of Folsom Lake Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the big guy Vince Bloom. We're going to give you a keyword. Coming up next, you're going to enter that at ESPN1320.com at that contest page, and you'll be entered to win $500. D'Lo and KC will also be giving you a word. You can enter that word as well to give yourself 2 chances to win $500 today, courtesy of Folsom Lake Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. We got that coming up. We'll dive into the NBA playoffs, and we've got some more Kings stuff to kind of put a bow on this Doug Christie news. Doug Christie is the head coach of the Sacramento Kings. We're talking about it here on ESPN 1320. We're the Insiders, sponsored by Jiffy Lube at Sacramento Sports Center.
Well, we haven't talked about the Shador Sanders plummet on draft day. That was hard to watch.
That was tough.
And they got him in the 5th round, the Browns did. Aldrin J, we've been discussing the Shaq to Sac State for a while. No. Sorry, Davion Fanatic. I don't think it's possible they can trade for Giannis. I do think that we're careening towards a cliff, and I hate to say it, but I do think Giannis will ask out this summer. Like the Damian Lillard injury, he's going to be out a year. And even when he comes back, he's going to be like 35, 36, coming off an Achilles tear. How old will Damian Lillard be? He's 34, 288. He won't play until he's 36, most likely. I get like the Sam Cassell stuff. Sam Cassell, I don't know why he doesn't get a job, but Sam Cassell has been an assistant for like so long, and so there's got to be something about the way that that he interviews. I don't know. I feel bad for him because, I think there are a lot of good coaches that just are always kind of stuck in that mode. Sam Cassell has been an assistant since the 2009 2010 season. So 17 years as an assistant, including this year on Boston. He was in Philadelphia. He was with the Clippers when they were really good. The fact that you're one of the top assistants on really good teams, but you never get the big job is tough. So, again, I'm not sure why someone say, hey, we got to get Sam Cassell. What has Sam Cassell done as a coach that makes you think that he's the guy?
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
And James is over there. Joe Brazil's behind the glass. I'm Kyle Madsen. We'll be with you until noon. Then we'll hand it off over to D-Lo and KC. I could not believe what I watched in Miami last night.
Yeah.
I've seen teams quit NBA games before. You see, they just kind of throw in the towel. We've seen it happen with the Kings. I see it if you watch enough basketball. I believe every team at least one time during a season just quits a game. I don't think I've ever seen it to the degree that the Miami Heat quit against the Cavs yesterday. That game started out 30-8. The Cavs could have stopped scoring with 9.5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and they still would have won.
Oh.
You could take out the Cavs' highest scoring quarter. They scored 39 points in the third quarter. If you take away all of their points in that quarter, the Heat can keep their points. You take away all of the Cleveland Cavaliers' points in the third quarter, all 39 of them, and they still won the game by 16 points. The talent disparity between the Cavs and the Heat was not... The fact that Cavs swept the series was not a shock. I was surprised the Heat went out the way they did. They got punked twice at home.
I'd say this too.
That's a surprise to me.
Like, we want to hold people accountable for like what we saw in the play-in game, right? Where the Kings just got crushed, right? What about this? This is like a franchise that is known for stability, that has one of the great coaches in the history of the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric
He's the
Spoelstra,
best coach in the league right now?
one of, I mean, top three.
Top three, pretty easily.
Yeah, without any question. And they lost by, was it 57?
55.
55.
Only 55.
Yeah, and that's 2 games in a row, right? Where they just got crushed.
Yeah, they got smoked the last 2 games of the series.
Yeah, so I mean,
I believe, just real quick, the margin of victory for the Cavs was plus 122, which is the largest margin of victory in a playoff series of all time.
That's wild. Well, I'm going to guess the last 2 games of a series too. There's no one
80 points or whatever it was.
55, and they lost by 37.
92.
So 92 points. 92 points in 2 games. So,
2 games.
But my point is that, like, if you're gonna like rail Doug Christie, get all over Doug Christie, get angry with Doug Christie because his team got beat in a play-in game against the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, this is like one of the great coaches in the league who just got crushed by 92 points over 2 games. Like,
right.
It happens.
It does.
So
I'm just shocked that it happened to Miami.
Yeah.
If this was the Orlando Magic, okay. I'm a little surprised because I thought they'd give Boston a better series, but Miami Heat, their whole thing is Heat culture. Their whole thing is this doesn't happen. They played not close games, but they stayed in contact for the most part with the Cavs in the 2 games in Cleveland. And then to come home and lose those 2 games by 92 points.
Kyle,
I was stunned. This is not like me being like, wow, the Heat have no, they were the less talented team. They should have gotten swept. I would not have guessed that would, of all the teams to have that happen, I would have assumed like, oh, that happened to Memphis or that happened to Orlando. Not
Atlanta.
Not the Heat.
Yeah.
Not the Heat.
What if I told you, Kyle, that trading your best player at midseason is not a formula for success?
Well, true.
Just saying.
But Pat Riley got his way. Culture.
Okay.
So who's the real winner here? Pat Riley.
Pat Riley and the game of life. Clearly.
Speaking of the Miami Heat trading their best player, they traded him to the Golden State Warriors, who went up 3-1 last night with a 109-106 win over the Rockets. There's so much to take away from this.
So much, man.
So if you told me that going into the series, Golden State is going to have a game where they don't have Jimmy Butler, and then they're going to have another game where Steph Curry scores 17 points on 2 of 8 shooting from 3. And I think he was 6 of 13 from the field. I would have just assumed they lost both of those games by many, many points. And they won them both.
I watched.
That's pretty impressive.
realistically, we talk about this all the time, the steps that NBA teams have to take, right? You got to get to the playoffs. And once you get to the playoffs, you got to take your lumps in a first round series, and you got to learn from that. And then, hopefully year 2, year 3, you start to ascend, right? I thought last night was the biggest example of what we're talking about. You had I don't even know how to describe him, but a complete clown show in Draymond Green.
Just a total mess.
Disrupt an entire game, destroy every bit of flow and every bit of any, that game got dirty and nasty, and he should have been thrown out at least twice.
Yeah.
And then he comes up in the last seconds of a game after he had to sit because he had 5 fouls, and he had a flagrant foul, and he had a technical foul, and he had to sit.
I didn't even know you could get a flagrant and a technical and have 5 fouls and still be eligible to play in the game.
That was such a dirty out by the officials. It was such a dirty out.
So before we get angry about it, I thought the entire fracas beforehand.
Yeah.
I've never seen a technical foul for taunting. I've genuinely never seen that.
Okay.
When Steph got fouled and he held up 2 fingers on Dylan Brooks, and then he got a tech for that. I didn't think that either anyone in that entire thing should have gotten a T. Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith had, I think, Quentin Post by the neck. So maybe that gets one. But I thought that was a big, okay, this is much ado about nothing. I thought maybe when they reviewed, they'd get Draymond for a moving screen.
Okay.
Was maybe going to be the outcome there. 3 techs felt like a lot.
I think they're trying to rein it in, but go ahead.
Yeah, right. No, I think so. So that's where on the next one, it's like, oh, that's a T for sure. But they already gave him one that he probably didn't deserve. So I actually thought the way they did it was smart, because the Rockets needed to get some kind of reward there. They needed that. They deserved some kind of free throws. So you get the flagrant, you get 2 free throws in the ball. He goes to the bench. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, but there was so much to it. There was the flinging your legs down on a guy's head. Then there was a kick. There was a kick while they were getting up. That was like, oh yeah, that's not good either. What are you like?
It's weird.
What I hate is that we have to talk about this trash every single time. And I'm not calling him trash. I'm calling what he does
the way
trash.
he plays, yeah.
And it's not even the way he plays. It's the way he acts and conducts himself.
Yeah.
Like the way he plays, he's still a great defender. Like he still can hit a 3 when you want. Yeah.
If this was just Guy, like, all right, like just cool. That's like Isaiah Stewart, right?
Yep.
Just all right, whatever. But it's infuriating because he does this stuff. And it's like, bro, you don't need to do that. Like he is a very, very good defender still. You saw it on the last play of the game.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? And it's Golden State's fault because they have
enabled
this.
Yeah. Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, it's the whole group.
I think I bring this up. I feel like I bring this up a lot because we talk about this a lot because there are a lot of incidents during the season, every season with Draymond. But Ethan Strauss wrote about this in, I think, 2016. And the conundrum of, okay, we have this guy who is a generationally great defender who the offense runs through. And we also have to deal with him potentially being ejected every time he steps foot on the floor. And for turning games like last night, which is already a very competitive, very physical series. It looks like 1997. And then turning it into
whatever.
What? I've run out of things to say, and this is not in defense of Draymond Green. This is in, okay, it's 2025. I've been having this conversation for 13 years.
Yeah.
I'm out of stuff to say. It's trash. It sucks. It's annoying to watch. We had an awesome basketball game last night, and this is the main headline from it. it's there's it comes with the territory aspect of it.
Yeah.
But to me, that's what you say about Steph Curry turning the ball over. Yeah, you know what? Hey, he's going to have 2 or 3 turnovers a game that really make you upset, but you know what? You live with it.
Yeah.
A
Buddy Hield.
But
turnovers
boy, that's right. But that's something you live in. The turning the yapping is one thing. I don't mind if you're going to yap and you're going to be loud. Okay, yap and be loud. It's the dragging player to the ground. It's the flailing arms and legs. And it's, again, this is not new. This is not last night.
Mm-mm.
The reason this is a problem, the reason we're having this discussion, if that had happened in the Pacers-Bucks game, and it was instead of Draymond Green and Tari Eason, it was Andrew Nembhard and AJ Green, we are not talking about this.
Oh, no.
Not even a little bit.
No, but it's just that we've been dealing with the same exact thing for so long, and we've seen it so many times play out exactly the same. And every single time you're wondering why the league doesn't do something. Like, I would not be surprised at all if the league reviews every bit of tape and Draymond Green is suspended for the next game. I wouldn't, because I think that there were enough things built into that game where you're like, come on, man. But at the same time, he got in their head. And this is why we talk about young teams trying to get through the playoffs, trying to figure it out. Like, Draymond is basically doing the same act that he's done, but while they won 4 championships, while they just kept being great.
Yeah.
And so, like, this is just a continuation of the same act. It's old, it's tired. It still works.
It still works.
And we watched a young team. I said it from day one before the season started. Houston Rockets are the most talented team in the league. You're watching that right now, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, what are they going to look like in 2 years?"
They're so sick, dude. They're. Can I go ahead? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Well, I mean, just like the Amin Thompson thing, you're watching a guy become a superstar in front of you. I hate that all they do is iso ball. I hate that it's either him or it's Şengün or it's Fred VanVleet hoisting from 30. Those are like their only 3 options. They have nothing else that they can do right now against Golden State Warriors. But still, watching Amin Thompson become a two-way superstar,
that's
crazy.
It's from the Rockets' perspective. Those are the 2 things. Is you can tell, you can see Kings Warriors a couple years ago. Same sort of deal. A team that's been there before, a team that hasn't. I did not think that in that series it came down to the experience factor more than like half a dozen possessions during the series.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 over the course of the 7 games, where it's like, man, you know what? There's that moment. There's that one little moment where that, like, God, it just was just enough to get Golden State past the Kings. In this, I think it's so much more evident that, man, you know what? Amin Thompson is just not quite sure what to do yet.
Well, I think that's part of it. Number one, the Kings weren't young. They were young, but they weren't young.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking
22
about.
22 and 23.
Yeah, and some guys had playoff I mean, I guess you can say some guys on the Rockets have had playoff experience, but again, some of the guys they're relying on are so incredibly young that they have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
The other thing is that the Kings and Warriors series was decided when De'Aaron Fox broke the tip of his finger.
Yeah, conceivably, for sure. But I think in the context of even that series, there were just plays that happened down the stretch where you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like there were a couple times where that and it's, again, I shouldn't have even brought this up because that's not the conversation I wanted to have. The point is, it didn't look that glaring in that King series. The experience of it, it's very glaring in this series.
Oh yeah.
And Amin Thompson, the thing that's so scary is you're starting to see him figure it out offensively. I mean, defensively he's great, but offensively you're starting to see the things click, and you're starting to see him figure out, okay, here's how to navigate a defense when they're not defending me because I'm not going to shoot a 3. And okay, this is the strength with which I need to go to the rack. This is the force I need to play with. And you just, it's not like he's deer in headlights. It's not like, oh man, Amin Thompson's a no-show. It's just he's figuring it out and he's learning, and that's scary.
Well, I think the other piece to that too is that's why you want your young team to go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's why it does matter. You do not play for draft picks at the end of the season. You play to try to get your team that little bit of experience, and that little bit of experience that we're seeing a player in Amen Thompson have to play a different way in the playoffs.
Mhm.
When he gets to game 1 next season and he's got all this experience and he's going to be able to work the off season and think, okay, that's how I have to play from here on out. And now I have
Yeah.
footage and I
Yep.
know the physicality. I know what it feels like.
Mhm.
What he might look like next year is just off the charts.
Yeah.
Just off the charts good. And, again, I think they're already preparing to clear out other young players who are really good,
Mhm.
but who aren't going to be great, and try to make sure that he is the focal point moving forward. I think Jalen Green, I think Jabari Smith Jr., like there are players on that team that could be had because they're going to want to focus everything on Şengün and on Amen Thompson.
Jabari Smith Jr. quietly having a very nice series too. He
Yeah.
is a player. Well, what we're going to do is as teams get eliminated, we'll start taking a look at pieces the Kings might be able to snag from that team, and we'll do a deep dive on the Rockets for sure if and when they're eventually eliminated from the playoffs. Alperen Şengün was unbelievable last night.
Oh yeah,
the Warriors outside of Draymond Green just have no answer for him.
he's like Gumby.
And even Draymond is an answer sometimes.
Yeah,
he just his bones are rubber. He just has no. But man, it's not just that like, oh, I'm just gonna be bigger than you and bully my way to the basket and go. He's got spin moves. He's got touch. He's got that little floater. He's got a little jumper. His bag, when he's driving, is just so deep.
It's the footwork, man.
Yes.
That play where he made the spin move and then put like the little half step down to give him the push. You're like, oh my goodness. Somebody learn how to do footwork at a young age. Like it's shocking. He is by far the best footwork post maneuver in the league right now.
Yeah.
Like there is nobody with that arsenal in the post. I don't like the next best is probably LeBron. Like I don't think that there is anyone that has that type. I mean, you could say Jokic has some of that stuff.
Jokic's game is different. Though.
Yeah. Watching him maneuver in the post is just wild.
It is. It's so annoying because I want to not, because he doesn't move conventionally.
Yeah.
So I want to be like, he's like, come on. But
that can't be real.
But you can't. He's so freaking good, dude.
Yeah.
Alas, it didn't matter last night. Warriors win 109-106. Brandon Pajemski, really good game. Shout out to Buddy Hield, who Steve Kerr said in his post-game locker room speech, this is the first time these words have ever been spoken. Buddy Hield, you set the tone defensively.
Ever.
Insane. He had a couple of big shots last night. I expect next game to be a disaster. I'm prepared for this now.
You're prepared.
I'm prepared.
Live by the buddy, die by the buddy.
I can't wait for the dribble it off the foot.
Which he had, and they did review, and
left.
like, oh my gosh, that was clearly off a buddy.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah, that's tough.
Wild.
All right, you want to give away $500?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. ESPN1320.com. This is the Jump Shot Jackpot giveaway, courtesy of Folsom Lake Chrysler, Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the big guy, Vince Bloom. Here's your word that you're going to enter at the contest page on ESPN1320.com for your chance to win $500. You ready?
I'm ready.
Steal.
Steal?
Steal. S-T-E-A-L. Steal.
I'm here for it.
Like a steal in basketball. Steal. S-T-E-A-L is your word for the Jump Shot Jackpot giveaway, courtesy of Folsom Lake Chrysler, Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the big guy, Vince Bloom. It's your chance to win $500. Stay locked in, though, to ESPN 1320, because D-Lo and Casey are also going to give you a word during their show. And that will be another chance to enter. It'll be a different word, a second chance to enter to win $500.
That's right.
We're giving you two chances. Take advantage of both of those. And we're also, speaking of D-Lo and Casey, we're going to have the handoff. That's coming up next. James Ham, Joe Brazil, I'm Kyle Madsen. We're the Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. And this is ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Center. This is if the Rockets had it like I don't even know what to. It's just Jalen Green doesn't. It's there. It's like, is Jalen Green hot from 3 tonight or not? And that's kind of.
Dude, he's Zach LaVine. I hate saying he is Zach LaVine.
He might be Zach.
He's Zach LaVine.
He might be Zach LaVine. Next game, it will be. This is an insane thing. I texted this to you. Assuming Jalen Green plays in Game 5, he will have more career playoff games played than Zach LaVine. That's crazy to me.
Yeah,
that's insane. But yeah, dude, I don't like. Amen's just not there yet. Offensively, like you see, he can just will his way to whatever he had 17 last night just by being big and athletic.
Yep.
But Şengün, I think, is there, and then like Van Fleet's not going whatever 8 for 12 or 11 or whatever he was last night. He's not doing that every night. And if he's not hitting.
And you forget that they have like the guys hiding on their bench. You know, Tari Eason, I thought was spectacular.
Tari Eason's a dog, dude. He's so sick.
Yeah, they just like know how to find the right guys. But they still don't they have like Reed Shepard, like the fourth pick in the draft, sitting on the bench. He doesn't even get to play yet.
Doesn't even play.
He might sit there for 2 years. They might bring Van Vliet back again.
Nah.
You don't think so?
Nah, you got to move Reed Shepard into that. If for no other reason, then I think he's probably a better offensive organizer.
Yeah. We'll see. They certainly don't have an offensive scheme.
No, and it's just there's not. Yeah. Like you can learn a lot about a team by when you watch them in a playoff series and they have certain lineups or certain guys who, when they come on their court, you're like, oh, nice. Like, okay, sweet. You go win these minutes. I don't, outside of maybe like Dylan Brooks, it's because I don't think he's super talented offensively. They're a really good defender, but they just like, there's no player outside of, no, never mind. When they load up for a 3, there's not a player on their team where I'm like, I can't let that guy shoot it.
Man, Dylan Brooks shot 39.7% from 3 this year.
Yeah, he did. But even still, Dylan Brooks is going to take a 3, like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's when Amen Thompson, like, he shot 27.5. That's the major hole in his game right now.
Yeah.
That dude averaged 8.2 rebounds per game.
Man. And he's what, 19, 20?
22.
Amen Thompson's already 22?
That's what this says.
Holy smokes.
1.4 steals, 1.3 blocks per game.
Been in the league 3 years now? This is his 3rd year? Thanks, Charlie.
This is his 2nd year. They said he's 22.
Huh.
Yeah. He turned 22 on January 30th.
Medulla oblongata.
There he is.
There's Charlie.
Oh, yeah, Zebra PT's at it. 19 of 31 at the free throw line is not going to get it done. What's up, D'Lo? D'Lo, that's weird. I never called you that. I never called you D'Lo. That's weird. I didn't like that.
Oh, that's okay.
It's weird for me.
It's fun hanging out yesterday.
I don't want things being weird for you. Oh, I had a blast. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. It was a good time. Good time. It's always fun when someone else picks up the alcohol tab, too.
That's true.
Facts. Do you know what I liked about yesterday? Was that every group I was in, everybody was like engaged in what we were doing. And I respect and appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you.
It's 100%. So easy at a thing like that to just be like, cool, day off for me.
Yeah.
And like everybody was.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Invested.
Yeah.
I didn't know Amen Thompson's name is Amiz XLNC.
Yeah, Excellency. Yeah, him and Asor, that's their middle names.
Okay, Excellency. All right. That's an interesting way to spell it, but
it's kind of fire.
Yeah.
Tried to teach you the meaning of it.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
James Ham's there, Joe Brazil behind the glass. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube, and it is 11:45. You know what that means.
It's time now for the handoff.
Yeah,
Taking the handoff from James and Kyle today, here's D-Lo, Damian Barling.
Hey, man.
Hey, what's going on, man?
The ultimate needle mover is here.
The ultimate needle mover. God mode himself.
Have you ever seen a playoff team? You know what? We got Doug Christie is the head coach of the Sacramento Kings, right? Moved by the Kings?
Yeah, I think so. I think Doug earned that spot last year. I think he has a rapport with the players. The example that gets one thing I try to lean on is Doug coached this team for 51 games.
Yeah,
that's a large sample size.
Very good sample.
Like every time I get antsy about thinking about someone like Antonio Pierce, where for whatever reason, Josh McDaniels was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting him. Now, I don't believe this was Mike Brown with 15 guys in that locker room.
Yeah,
maybe it was Mike Brown for 1 or 2, but it wasn't Mike Brown for 15. Just getting McDaniels out of there just brought a sense of like you could breathe.
Yeah.
Right. And the Raiders experienced like a glow with Antonio Pierce as the head coach. How good of a coach was Antonio Pierce? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I don't know. But I know in that moment that team needed him. That was like 6 games, 7 games, something like that. Like Doug coached 51 games. He coached more games last year than Mike Brown did. So if this had happened with 10 games in the season, you know, if they had gone Memphis Grizzlies or whoever and fired Mike really late, I don't know that I would feel the same way, but Doug coached 51 games last year. And I think he showed us enough, even with a limited coaching staff, that he could do some good things in this league. And I don't think anyone is more committed to their job or the city that they do their job in than Doug Christie is the Kings in the city of Sacramento.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen so many other times where the midseason coaching change just did not work at all. And in fact, it never worked at all in Sacramento that I can remember, where a coach stepped in midseason and even got remotely close to 500. So to be able to go 27-24, look, it's not the greatest. He didn't just blow the doors off of everybody, but at the same time, after you gave him the job, you traded your best player. You provided like so much chaos, and he was able to keep the group together and trudge through. And we were talking about this, you know, watching Eric Spoelstra lose control of a Heat team and have them get clubbed like that. That happens. And so when I look at,
it doesn't happen to him.
It doesn't. But
That
when you
was
look at
crazy.
the play-in game and you're like, everyone's so disappointed by the play-in game.
Yeah.
Look what just happened to the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
And can I real quick, if that's the reaction, if that's where people genuinely have a problem with hiring Doug Christie is what happened in the play-in game, that feels like a Kings move that they would get fried for. Is like, Doug was the guy until this play-in game nonsense. Okay, we'll scrap this. Like, no, man, they had 51 games to watch and go, man, you know what? And they're around. They're around the building. They're around the players.
Yeah.
They go, man, you know what? This is the guy. Pulling the plug on that because of what happened in the play-in game, that's the disaster move to me.
I'm with you.
If you've moved forward this entire 51-game stretch going, gosh, okay, that's our guy for next year. Roster needs to be different, but we like what he's shown us. Blowing that up because of a 1-game sample is exactly what gets the Kings into trouble. So if that's where, because there's a lot of people in the chatty house who are not super thrilled with the Doug Christie hire. If that's what it is, it's like, God, the Washington game late in the season and then the play-in game, God, this guy's just, that to me is overreactionary.
Yeah.
And that's what you can't have in this spot.
No, you had to evaluate Doug in his total body of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think you had to evaluate him in the sense of what was the circumstances in which he took over.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the De'Aaron stuff happened. And it wasn't just a swift, clean break with De'Aaron. Like, it lingered for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
He oversaw that. Then just the regular trade deadline, he had to oversee that as well.
Mhm.
Then you've got guys like Luke Loutz leaving. You got guys like Wes Wilcox leaving. You got all of the very obvious turmoil. Dissension was the word I was going to use. I don't know if that's the right word, but turmoil within the front office. Like Doug had to navigate all of that.
Yeah.
Of course, every coach has to do this, but you got to navigate injuries. You got to navigate people being in and out of the lineup. You got to navigate a rookie who you brought in, he wasn't ready. You had to send him down. You got to judge when to bring him back, and that's probably one that the Kings deserve a little bit of credit for. Is you're better off leaving Devin Carter away too long than bringing him back too fast.
No doubt.
Because the worst thing you could do is bring him back and he still sucks. Now you're killing his confidence. Now even the most confident young man thinking, I know it's just a rehab. I know I just need some time. And then you get brought back up too soon and you still stink. Yeah, that's going to be tough for him to come back from. But the fact that they may have waited just like an extra couple of days, extra little stretch to allow him to be a part of Stockton, develop a little bit more, then bring him back up. And Doug trying to figure out, okay, how can I build this young man's confidence, and how can I see what we can get from him out on the floor? That's another issue. It was just another obstacle that Doug had to navigate around this year. And I think all of that needed to be taken into consideration by Scott Perry and everybody involved in this hiring process.
Yeah, I would add the one other thing that he did late in the season, which I think we kind of gloss over, is that he unwound the clock on the Malik Monk situation. Like, we forget, like, Malik got pushed back to the bench, which is the best thing for this team moving forward, most likely.
And he did it so subtly.
Yeah, I mean, Malik coming back off of injury, like, oh, okay, Malik's sixth man again. But we kept saying, you can't go back from that, right? Like, we've said it a million times. And Mike couldn't. There was no way Mike could go back from it. Doug found a way late in the season, said, you know what? I'm going to do what's best for the team, not what's best for one guy. Not what one guy wants. And I don't care how much the dissension is. I'll pay for it later. But I'm going to do this. And to be honest with you, whether it worked or not, it was still the right move for this franchise moving forward, is for Malik to be an elite six man and not like a league average starter.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I didn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Very quietly. Hey, Malik's back to six man again. Anyways, what?
No, first we're going to introduce him as a starter.
Oh,
then we're gonna put him on the bench and wait till James asks the question after the game.
It'll be very
instead
subtle.
Of before. It was all James's fault. If James had just asked before the game, we all would have known. No dissension. Doug even said James. He might not have said James.
No, he said Jason.
Oh, it was Jason.
It was because Jason usually asked, and Doug usually says, "I'm not going to tell you." Doug wasn't going to tell him.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
Of course he was.
Come on now.
Man.
It's a cat and mouse game.
You know who's never going to not ask again, though? Jason.
Yeah, right.
Real quick, have you ever seen a playoff team quit the way Miami did last night? I don't think I've ever seen it to that degree. That was
Miami
crazy.
team, or you said, have I ever seen like the Heat?
Like any team.
Yeah, I've seen teams quit before.
In the playoffs like that?
Yeah,
Man,
like down 3-0. I've just never seen it from Miami. I've never seen it from an Eric Spoelstra led team. We've seen teams die in the postseason before. We've seen teams go, they know they have no shot in the series and kind of, Cancun it. That was pretty bad last night, though. That was definitely one of the worst. And coming off of the heels of what happened the game before, it's pretty crazy.
They lost that game by 37 in game 3. The Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley, Miami Heat have built their reputation on, that's not happening again. And then they go down 30-8.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But it's about right, man. They're just not that. We're super talented.
Yeah.
It's not that good of a team.
Trading your star in the middle of the season doesn't seem to be the move. Just saying.
Yeah, maybe not the best. Yeah, that was a tough look. Like, Eric Spoelstra has never looked broken at a press conference before, but that man was just flabbergasted by what his team did yesterday.
Yeah. Tough to watch.
Yeah.
What do you guys have coming up on D-Lo and Casey?
A lot of this, for sure. We're going to talk about the officiating a little bit. We'll talk about Shaq at Sac State, Trista Crick at 2:00, Jason Jones in the 3:00 hour. So
Busy
nice
day.
little Tuesday.
Busy day on a Tuesday. D-Lo and KC, they're coming up next. For James Ham and Joe Brazil, I'm Kyle Madsen. We're the Insiders, and we are sponsored by Jiffy Lube. This is ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. I promise we're back tomorrow.
We are.
We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Allegedly.
Right here. According to sources, we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. right here on
It's
this
not
very
real
radio
unless
station.
Shams tweets it.
ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. Drink water. Be nice, people. Woo!